Okay, welcome back. This is part two of the Little Rock, Arkansas and Brown versus Board Day. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to discuss your information in your groups, and we're going to get started. We'll watch a little bit more of the video, then we'll stop and we'll have some more conversation about it. So let's continue with Little Rock.
The 8 children and the adults with them were turned away by the National Guard. The 9th student, Elizabeth Eckford, had missed the call to gather with the others before school. Elizabeth Eckford walked alone and met a mob.
Can you tell me your name, please? Are you going to go to school here at Central High? You don't care to say anything, is that right? This girl here was the first Negro apparently of high school age to show up at Central High School the day that the federal court ordered it integrated. She was followed in front of the school by an angry crowd, many of them shouting epithets at her.
Well, it has to be the most frightening thing. I mean, because she had a crowd of white people behind her threatening to kill her. She had nobody. I mean, there was not a black face in sight anywhere. Nobody that she could turn to as a friend, except that this woman came out of the crowd and guided her through the mob and onto the bus and got her home safely.
The black parents and the NAACP went back to court. The leader of the state organization, Daisy Bates, became the students' strongest supporter. The national NAACP saw this case as a showdown for desegregation, and they assisted the local lawyers.
Well, we consider this case important as one of the segregation cases, but in addition to the fact that this one involves the appearance of the National Guard on the scene, and for the first time in any of our cases, it's the action of the governor that eventually will have to be brought into court. Then you'd see it as a state-federal conflict of authority. Well, I don't think there's any question about that.
The question was whether the federal government would assert its authority. The pressure on the president increased. Defiance of federal law seemed to be spreading. From Little Rock, here to North Little Rock, to Nashville, Tennessee, and to Charlotte, North Carolina. Some people blamed Eisenhower for this resistance, saying his lack of leadership on civil rights encouraged the extremists.
President Eisenhower's position was that he was the president of all the people. He felt that his role was to talk to the moderates throughout the country, including the southern states. He felt that, and was told by many advisors, that Governor Faubus could be reasoned with, and that an amicable solution could be found in the Little Rock crisis.
In mid-September, the president and the governor had a meeting at Eisenhower's vacation home in Newport, Rhode Island.
The president thought that he had persuaded Governor Faubus to go back and allow the black children to enter the high school peaceably. It was quite a surprise to him. He felt let down when Governor Faubus decided against allowing the black children to enter the high school.
Eisenhower had convinced Faubus that ultimately the state could not resist federal authority. Faubus changed his tactic. He simply removed the National Guard, leaving only city police.
Okay, So let's talk about a few things. First of all, Daisy Bates. You really need to know about Daisy Bates. She plays an integral role, a critical role in this for the 9 students. She's local NAACP, and she is one of the leaders. You know, we always hear about Thurgood Marshall. We hear about Martin Luther King. We never hear about the Joanne Robinsons and the Daisy Bates that are very important to the movement. But she is incredibly important to the movement. So if you have an opportunity, you should Google her and see what you can get on Daisy Bates. Why does the federal government win this case? I mean, what's the deal? This is where you need to understand the Constitution and what the Constitution has laid out. Separation of powers, yes, we are in a federalist system, but there still has to be a hierarchy. What and where is this hierarchy set up? Finally, Farmas changes tactics. He pulls the National Guard away. Why? What do you think he's thinking? Okay, remember, this is a guy who was originally a moderate, and now he's suddenly becoming an anti-integrationist. Okay, he's becoming a staunch segregationist, and he's doing it primarily for political reasons. He was elected to his term with a reasonable amount of black votes last time. Now he's garnering the white vote. He doesn't want to lose the white vote, so he has that process. Take a moment, meet with your groups, discuss what we just talked about. Okay, why is he doing this? What's going to happen? What do you see coming down the road? And then when you're done with that, please, by all means, start the tape again and you can continue. All right, so take a moment. Make sure you're writing some stuff down so we can have this conversation on Monday. Okay, so we're back. We're going to continue with the piece. I hope you've got enough information to get you started. Let's continue.
An explosive situation as the Little Rock Nine entered Central High School.
Now remember, there's...
We entered the side of the building. Thousands of people out front. And we were entering the side, and I could just get a glimpse of this group. And in the car, I could hear, on the car radio, I could hear that there was a mob. And I knew what a mob meant. And I knew that the sounds that came from the crowd were very angry. So we entered the side of the building very, very fast.
We've just got a report here on this end that the students are in.
Look at how women are behaving.
You can see from
Look
here.
at how people are behaving as a result of this.
The 3 of us represented the black press. That was all, and we were on the mall in front of the school, and the word got to the crowd outside that the niggas are in the school. Then they said to us, you come out here as a decoy, and then other people slipping into the side of this building. So I said, hell no, like that, you see.
The crowd turned on Hicks and on his companions, Moses Newsom and Alex Wilson.
Somebody had a brick in his hand, and instead of throwing the brick, because he was too close, he hit Alex Wilson up beside his head with this brick. Of course, Wilson was more than 6 feet tall, an ex-Marine. He went down like a tree.
The mob was getting past the wooden sawhorses because the policemen would no longer fight their own in order to protect us. And so someone made a suggestion that if they allowed the mob to hang one kid, they could then get the rest out. And a gentleman, whom I believe to be the assistant chief of police, said, how are you going to choose? You're going to let them draw straws. He said, I'll get them out. And we were taken to the basement of his place. And we were put into 2 cars, grayish blue-colored Fords. And the man instructed them, he said, once you start driving, do not stop.
The rioting was headline news. The nation and the world saw unmistakably the face of resistance. Finally, President Eisenhower realized he had to act, and he did.
Okay, let's look at this, all right? First of all, why does Farbus do this? Think about it. What has Farbus got to gain by having this much of a riot? It's purely done for political reasons, all right? Number two, think about what Melba just said. If they let them hang one child, they can get the rest out? No, that's not going to happen, okay? So they end up having to get them out of there with the police. So the police do help the students get out, okay? But there's a massive mob and there's a massive riot taking place. And as a result of this, you have more problems, okay? So Eisenhower is forced to do something, all right? So do me a favor, talk for a moment amongst yourselves. What did you see in this piece? What did you get out of this piece? Why does Farbus do this? What's his gain? What's his rationale? Why does he feel comfortable having Arkansas portrayed on the national and international news in the way it is? All right, so take a moment, talk with everybody, and we'll be back. All right, welcome back. Let's continue.
That night, he sent in the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division.
An extreme situation has been created in Little Rock. This challenge must be met, and with such measures as will preserve to the people as a whole their lawfully protected rights. If resistance to the federal court order ceases at once, the further presence of federal troops will be unnecessary, and a blot upon the fair name and high honor of our nation in the world will be removed. Mob rule can not be allowed to override the decisions of our courts. My fellow citizens, we are now an occupied territory. In the name of God, whom we all revere, in the name of liberty we hold so dear, in the name of decency which we all cherish, what is happening in America?
When we got into the Jeep, into the station wagon rather, and the convoy that went from Mrs. Bates' house to the school that had a Jeep in front, a Jeep behind, they both had machine gun mounts, and then the whole school was ringed with paratroopers and helicopters hovering around, and we marched up the steps with this circle of soldiers with bayonets drawn. I figured that we had really gone into school that day, and walking up the steps that day was probably one of the biggest feelings I've ever had. I figured I had finally cracked it.
Okay, think about what you just saw in these images, okay? United States Army troops with fixed bayonets on the streets of an American city using those weapons to force a crowd back. No, they didn't stab anybody, that's not what I said, but they used them to push the people back, and they need to use these weapons to bring the students into the school, okay? It was really interesting to listen to Farbus talk about being an occupied territory. Once again, he is a politician. He is playing this up for politics. He's not playing this up for any other reason than to sit there and gain political points. He did not have to do what he did. He chose to do what he did purely for political reasons, all right? So I'm going to stop this right now. You can go over to part 3. There's not much time left on this, and we'll pick up with Melba when we get to part 3.